Let me take a minute to just intro this, and then I will try to do this all in character to make it more fun. We'll see how that goes. But basically, how many of you absolutely love Dumbledore, think he's like the best guy ever, you know, perfect saint? Hands up. No? Okay. Good. How many of you think he's a horrible person who was going to sacrifice Harry and just didn't care about people? Well, okay, less extreme than that, but like, how many of you are really angry with him after Deathly Hallows? Okay. So, I have been trying to reconcile this for a good 5 years. The first time I ever cried reading a book was when Dumbledore died. Then I read Deathly Hallows, and I'm like, yeah, how could you? And every time I reread, I cry when he dies, and then I hate him a book later. So I'm just like, okay, is he a good person, or is he not? I need to decide. So I sat down with like all the books open around me, like essays online, and I'm like, okay, I need to figure out what the hell he was planning in Deathly Hallows to figure out what, you know, what was going through his mind. So that is what we shall be doing. So, next question. How many of you love Order of the Phoenix, the book?
That's probably my least favorite one.
How many of you think it's like one of your least favorites?
Of the series.
Yeah, of the series. Yeah. Okay. I never liked Order of the Phoenix. It's been my least favorite book. The reason for this is not the usual, not caps lock Harry, none of that. For me, it just seemed so pointless. We spent 900 pages, well, 870, a lot of pages, this whole thing with the prophecy, then we get the prophecy, and what do we find out? Harry or Voldemort have to kill each other. Who saw that coming? Right? So then I'm like, why? Why waste a book on this? It never made sense to me. So, I think I got it. And so, when Harry Potter came to me in summer of 1995 to tell me Lord Voldemort had risen again, I figured out what Lord Voldemort would be up to. Here we have Lord Voldemort's evil to-do list, circa June 1995. Kill Harry Potter, kill myself, free the Death Eaters, take over the Ministry of Magic, start a mudblood genocide, and live evilly ever after. I somehow need to stop Voldemort from doing all of these things, but how? Basically, he is at a huge advantage because the entire wizarding world is refusing to acknowledge that he has returned. So I needed to keep him busy somehow to give myself a head start, right? So, here's the thing. Here's the text of the prophecy. I'm sure half of you know it by heart, so feel free to recite it. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. Born to those who have Christ defied him. Born as the 7th month dies. The Dark Lord shall mark him as his equal, but he will have the power the Dark Lord knows not. And either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. So Voldemort is obsessed with getting this prophecy in 1995. Now, what's it to me if he gets it? What can he glean from this? Basically, he has already heard the first half, right? So check that off. The only part that would be new to him is the Dark Lord shall mark him as his equal, but he will have the power the Dark Lord knows not. But that's already happened. And either must die at the hand of the other. Also, Voldemort is trying to kill him. He knows that Harry will probably try to kill Voldemort. So, nothing bad would happen if Voldemort got his hands on the prophecy and heard it. So, why did I expend so many resources on protecting the prophecy when really it's no big deal if he does hear it? Well, I decided that the prophecy would make an excellent decoy. basically, I would keep Voldemort chasing after the prophecy for however many months that worked. And in the meantime, I could go about my business trying to stop him, right? Now, to keep this up, I had to funnel almost all of my resources into this. I had to have my Order of the Phoenix keep up the ruse. They had to protect it all the time, and basically that was the biggest job for the Order of the Phoenix from 1995 to 1996. Because there are like, what, 20, 25 members of the Order of the Phoenix, and they are guarding this thing 24/7. So that's a significant chunk of their available time. But here is the thing. I decided not to trust the Order with the knowledge of their mission, and I informed them that they did have to protect the prophecy, the fact that it is life and death. Sirius says on page 420 of Book 5 that there are things worth dying for. This is after Arthur Weasley was attacked by Nagini. And sure, there are things worth dying for. Protecting this prophecy, not one of them. And the Order still thought this after Sturgis Podmore was sent to Azkaban, after Arthur was bitten by Nagini. The Order still was willing to give their lives to protect this prophecy. And that was essential to keep up this ruse. But to make sure that they were convinced of this...
Really? They can't help it.
Oh, it's the improv thing next door.
We'll ignore them.
Yes. So I told the Order that I did not tell the Order, rather, what they are guarding. If you remember, Sirius says early on in Order of the Phoenix that what they're guarding is, quote, like a weapon. This also has bugged me, not Dumbledore, for years, because how in the hell is the prophecy a weapon? I gave the quote later in Book 5 that the weapon Voldemort was seeking was the knowledge of how to destroy Harry. Now, we all know that Sirius would not view the knowledge as a weapon. I think he has a more conventional idea of what a weapon is. And so, basically, the Order is telling Harry what they themselves believe, that they are guarding a weapon that it is imperative to keep Voldemort from attaining. And this shows that I was willing to have them risking their lives for what they thought was an important task when it was just a decoy for Voldemort. And my infinitely more admirable brother says to Harry, quote, "Secrets and lies, that's how we grew up, and Albus, he was a natural." Basically, I did not trust anyone with any of my plans, and that includes this one. And while Voldemort was chasing after this prophecy, I had 10 uninterrupted months to try to bring about his downfall. The first half of that, I still was in my position as headmaster of Hogwarts, so I had to do research on Voldemort. Those memories that I showed Harry in Half-Blood Prince, those took time to acquire. I had to chase down Slughorn. I had to sift through all the memories myself. To figure out what the Horcruxes were, where they could be, and all of that. There's a separate essay about what the timeline is of when I knew about Horcruxes, but won't get into that. And after Umbridge kicked me out, I didn't mind at all. I was like, please, because after Umbridge kicked me out, I could be on my own, and I could try to hunt down the Horcruxes without anyone being the wiser. And in those months, those are when I found the ring, the Peverell ring, because I have it in July of 1995, right after the fourth book ended, and as we see, it takes me almost a year to find the next Horcrux. This hunting business is time-consuming. So that plan worked out rather well for me. Now, Miss Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter history books, has rather, well, I don't like this one, but she has a good quote about me that she told interested readers. Although Dumbledore seems so benign for 6 books, he's quite a Machiavellian figure, really. He's been pulling a lot of strings. Harry has been his puppet. When Snape says to Dumbledore, we've been protecting Harry so he could die at the right moment, I don't think in book 1 you would have ever envisioned a moment when you simply would be with Snape rather than Dumbledore. And, I mean, yes, that is it in a nutshell. In the first 6 books, when you meet me, you know, I'm this great, magnanimous figure. I save everyone at any cost. I mean, I even saved the Hippogriff in 1994. So everything was great then. But then, in the last book, there came a very human cost, a very real human cost to my plans to stop Voldemort, and I was not afraid of that. And this next quote does rather hurt, but Snape is quite right when he tells me, you have used me. I have spied for you and lied for you, put myself in mortal danger for you. Everything was supposed to be to keep Lily Potter's son safe. Now you tell me you have been raising him like a pig for slaughter. And it's harsh, but, I mean, did anyone really disagree with Snape in that moment?
No.
Again, stepping aside from Dumbledore, I am not a fan of Snape. I think he's a reprehensible human being and all that. But even I have to admit, got a point there. Okay. So, I am utilitarian. I will do whatever is needed to achieve my ends. Now, there are some theories that try to paint me in a better light, saying that I sacrificed everything, including myself, for the cause. No. Let's be real. Basically, they point to the chess match in Sorcerer's Stone, where, if you remember, Ron played the Black Knight, and he sacrificed himself to the White Queen so Harry could checkmate the king. Now, a lot of people believe that this is a metaphor for the series, with me being the Black Knight sacrificing myself to the White Queen, Snape in this instance. And that left Harry free to checkmate Voldemort, if you will. But that's just not true, because I was dying. If you remember, when I reached for the Peverell ring, I got a terrible curse put upon me. And so in July of 1995, I told Severus that I have up to a month to live. When I'm actually killed in June of 1996, 11 months are up. Also, I've just taken that horrible potion in the cave, which probably exacerbated the process. There was a war going on in Hogwarts. I mean, I was going to die within a month tops, probably sooner. And I chose a quick and painless death. Because if I was going to die, I didn't want it to be at the hands of Death Eaters. You know, lovely Bellatrix who likes to play with her food. The term I used. So, basically it's a moot point. Would I have sacrificed myself for the cause? Well, I don't think anyone will ever really know, because I never had to. Because from the utilitarian point of view, I am just about the greatest asset that the side of good has, aside from Harry Potter himself, so it wouldn't make sense for me to sacrifice myself. So, moving on from that. Dumbledore is willing to so we just did that, sorry. Now here's the thing. I am willing to sacrifice everything and everyone for the cause, and yet when we get to Deathly Hallows, I know that a lot of you were probably wondering, what the hell was he thinking? Because it's all absurd. How much it appears I left to chance. For starters, Harry knows nothing about Horcruxes. about how to destroy them, let alone where to find them. He's completely unequipped. He knows nothing about the sword of Gryffindor, because let's remember how he got the sword of Gryffindor. They took Phineas Nigel's portrait off the wall and carried him around in their bag, so that when the portrait overheard them talking about where they were, he let Snape know, who then apparated the Force of Dean and found them. I'm good, but I couldn't plan that. And I mean, honestly, how hard would it have been for me to, pull Harry's side and be like, hey, so if I kick it, pop into my office, take the sword, and, then move on. There, I just took 5 seconds to tell it to you. Now, okay, I will admit that I was planning on telling Harry all of this that very night, when we returned with the Locket Horcrux, or, what we hoped would be the Locket Horcrux. I was going to show him how to destroy it and tell him about the sword. Yes, I was cutting it close if I had less than a month to live, but that all seems well thought out and, logical compared to the other plan, which was letting Harry know that he needs to die. Let's think about, so basically the plan was that once Snape saw that Voldemort was protecting Nagini, he would find Harry and let him know through his memories that Harry needed to die because of the scar. Can you see any ways this might go wrong? What if, let's say, Nagini was not the last Horcrux, and Voldemort was not protecting her, and so on? What if Snape never interacts with Voldemort and Nagini? I mean, he's there, running Hogwarts. Voldemort's off doing his own thing with the wand and so forth. And I'll get to the wand later. So what if Snape just doesn't know what's up? How will Snape find Harry? More importantly, will Harry listen to Snape? I mean, they're not like bosom friends. I think if Snape wasn't dying when he gave the memories, they could have had a very different ending to the series. Will a Pensieve be available to view these memories? Because they're quite rare commodities. What if Snape dies? The whole thing goes up in flames. There's no contingency plan here. I mean, if Snape dies, that knowledge would die with him, and that would be that. So, it's kind of ridiculous. It seems kind of ridiculous how poorly thought out this all seemed. Oh, yes.
But maybe Dumbledore thought that Harry would have gone to his death anyway, whether he knew he had to do that or not.
I don't believe so. I think that Harry might have wanted to, because he has that whole saving people thing. But I think that Ron and Hermione would talk him out of it. They do tell him, like, you're not thinking of giving yourself up, and he's like, yeah, okay, I won't. So I don't believe Harry will do that. And also, I mean, the timing of it is so important. Harry only needs to do that when it can reasonably be assured that he will be defeated after that. So basically, so it appears ridiculous, but I do have several plans going on for this. Now, there are many excellent quotes by yours truly in the series. However, there is one that I think reveals more about me than any other quote. It actually comes at the end of Order of the Phoenix, when he is admitting to Harry why he did not let Harry know about the prophecy. Do you see, Harry? Do you see the flaw in my brilliant plan now? I had fallen into the trap I had foreseen, that I had told myself I could avoid, that I must avoid. I cared about you too much. I cared more for your happiness than for your knowing the truth, more for your peace of mind than my plan, more for your life than the lives that might be lost if the plan failed. Now, when we get this quote in Order of the Phoenix, it's sad because Sirius lost his life, essentially, so Dumbledore could preserve Harry's happiness. However, I think that this quote applies to Dumbledore's plans in Deathly Hallows as well. That he had sensible plans laid out. Sorry, that I did. I spoke to the third person. That I had sensible plans laid out, and essentially I messed them up because I cared for Harry and wanted to keep him alive and happy just that little bit longer. Sorry. Rather a lot, aren't I? Now, I'll admit I was very, very worried about Harry having to die. But then, I think the older fans of Harry Potter, like more longtime fans, will remember this. There's a line in my conversation with Harry at the end of Goblet of Fire that the Harry Potter fandom spent years puzzling over. 3 words. Gleam of triumph. Yes? Yes. So basically, when Harry tells me that Voldemort took some of his blood for Voldemort's resurrection, there was a gleam of triumph in my eye. Why? Right? Because I realized that this could keep Harry alive after Voldemort kills the bit of the scar. Just to recap how that all works, because it is quite convoluted, Harry's blood keeps Lily's charm alive, the charm that where Lily died to protect him then protects Harry. That's what makes Voldemort, crumble to ashes and all that. Now, when Voldemort took some of Harry's blood into himself, that meant that the blood was there, and that the blood in Voldemort's body would keep the charm alive and would protect Harry if Voldemort tried to kill him. Are you there? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So he might survive the destruction of the Scarcrux, but we can't know. I mean, this has never been tested. It certainly has never happened. How could we know? How could I know? So, I started hatching some of my plans in the beginning of Half-Blood Prince. When I learned that I was going to die within the year, that meant that I would not be there to see the war to its end, and I would not be the one to tell Harry that he had to die, which I'm sure I had gone over the conversation a million times in my mind, how I tell that poor boy. But when I inform Severus of his duty, I tell him that Harry must not know, not until the last moment, not until it is necessary. Otherwise, how could he have the strength to do what must be done? As you so brilliantly put, Harry would sacrifice himself anyway. If he knew that he had to die, he'd angst an awful lot. There'd be so much angst. But he would accept it, and he would, move on with life. And certainly I knew that. I've watched the boy so closely, and basically, this goes back to that quote where I cared more for his happiness than for his knowing the truth. And this kind of means that I was gambling hundreds of lives to keep Harry alive and happy just that little bit longer. So I am Machiavellian, yes, but when it comes to Harry, I was very reluctantly so. Okay, I've talked about Dumbledore's plans in the abstract for far too long now. Oh, thanks. So, let's do the plan reveal. There are, I believe, 4 plans going on here. So, Plan A, straightforward one, the Horcruxes. So, Snape becomes the master of the Elder Wand, keeping it out of Voldemort's filthy hands. Again, put that aside for a minute. Harry destroys the remaining Horcruxes. Harry is alerted to the fact that his scar is a Horcrux, then he sacrifices himself to destroy said Horcrux, and then Harry's willing sacrifice imbues the wizarding world with the same protection that Harry got from Lily's sacrifice, ensuring that Voldemort cannot hurt them anymore. I think that Dumbledore planned for this to happen. Again, I couldn't be sure that this would happen, but I know quite a bit about the workings of such charms. Now, this plan is formed right in the summer of '95 when I find out I'm dying. Straightforward. Now, after Harry sacrifices himself, this can go one of two ways. Now, the one we want is Harry survives because of all the blood stuff and blah, blah, blah. So then Harry would come back to life and proceed to defeat Voldemort. I mean, this is great. You know, it all works out. We live happily ever after. Voldemort's done, and Harry's alive. However, what if it doesn't work that way? There's a great quote in my chat during the King's Cross chapter where I say that Harry and Lord Voldemort have journeyed together into realms of magic thereto unknown and untested. So I could not know whether Harry would survive or not, so I need a contingency plan. So that brings us to plan B. Harry does not survive. Really hope this doesn't happen, but if Harry does not survive, thanks to the protection from his sacrifice and the fact that Voldemort is now mortal, another reasonably talented wizard should be able to kill Voldemort. Ideally, Snape would be the one to do this. He could use the Elder Wand to defeat Voldemort, or, you know, another wand, but Elder Wand would give him an advantage, and thereby would clear his name. And this was my way of atoning for putting Snape through utter hell in Deathly Hallows. Yep. Let me clarify, because there are many conflicting quotes in Deathly Hallows about whether I intended to die as Master of the Elder Wand and not have it passed on, or whether I intended for Snape to become the Master. And that is because both are true. Originally, from 1945 to 1995, I intended to die the last Master of the Elder Wand, so no one could wield its power. However, when it became clear that I would not live long enough to stop Voldemort, someone else would need to take the power of the Elder Wand and wield it to defeat the Dark Lord. And that is when I changed the plan for Snape to become the Master. That is my theory. I believe that this is accurate. Now, how does this work out with the prophecy? Well, Harry is, quote, the one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord, and it's iffy, but if Harry dies and therefore protects the entire wizarding world from Voldemort, it will vanquish Voldemort even if someone else is doing the actual vanquishing. And either must die at the end of the other, you know, check, Harry died. So the prophecy's good to go. Now, now here's the thing. I put a lot of effort into protecting Harry here, but this plan put a bullseye on Severus Snape's back. I knew Voldemort would go after the wand. I knew Voldemort would figure it out. I mean, Voldemort isn't the brightest bulb in the bunch, but he is reasonably clever enough to figure out that if Snape killed me, Snape would be the Master of the Elder Wand. And this puts a bullseye on Snape's back. It ensures Voldemort will go after him. And this shows just how much faith I had in Severus, that I trusted him to stay alive somehow, even though Voldemort wanted to kill him. And this is the most reckless part of all my plans, but I do have that much faith in Severus. I believe in his cunning and his ability to evade Voldemort if need be. So, we have Plan A and Plan B, fairly straightforward. Now, the snag comes in step 3 of Plan A, which was letting Harry know that he needs to die because of the Scarcrux. So, a couple months later, after mulling it over, this is around the time that I have that conversation with Severus, where, we argue and Snape says he doesn't want to anymore and so forth. And so, Plan C, which is slowing everything down. I wanted to keep Harry alive that little bit longer. And judge me for this if you will, I intentionally decided to procrastinate the moment that Harry finds out about the Scarcrux. Because in my plan, Snape, Nagini lets Harry know, so forth, I falsely necessitated 3 things for Harry to find out about the Scarcrux. I essentially made sure it was necessary for Voldemort to find out that Harry's hunting the Horcruxes, otherwise he wouldn't put Nagini into the bubble. Number 2, I necessitated that Voldemort is worried for Nagini, and then Snape has to interact with him and find out that Voldemort is worried. And number 3, Snape has to find a way to let Harry know. None of these steps are really necessary, but I thought that they would slow everything down and give Harry a few more months, hopefully. Now, ignoring the fact that Harry might not listen to Snape, because I'm sure Severus would convince him somehow, I do have that much faith in him. There are 4 assumptions I make when formulating all this. And you know what they say when you assume. Okay. Assumption number 1 is that Voldemort will only find out about the Horcrux hunt after Harry has destroyed all the other Horcruxes except Nagini. Because, basically, if Voldemort finds out early on, bad things happen, he will protect the other Horcruxes, even further, and Harry just wouldn't stand a chance. This also assumes that Harry can't kill Nagini without alerting Voldemort, because then Snape wouldn't know, that Voldy was protecting Nagini. But both of these seem reasonable, because basically if Voldemort does learn about the Horcrux hunt, the whole plan goes up in flames, and, well, he wins. And Harry can't kill Nagini without alerting Voldemort, right? So that's assumption number 1. Assumption number 2 is that after learning about the Horcrux hunt, Voldemort will have an opportunity to chat with Snape. This is reasonable simply because I know the Dark Lord, and he believes that he alone knows about all of this. So, if he found out that someone knew about his Horcruxes, and even worse, was hunting them down, in his paranoia, he would marshal the Death Eaters, and, that would include Severus. Now, here's the risky one, number 3, is that after learning of the Horcrux hunt, Voldemort will not have the opportunity to make additional Horcruxes. Now, this is a risky assumption, because the logical thing to do is, you find out you have 1 Horcrux left, make 10 more. Take the backpack and the chair and the water and just, make everything a Horcrux. Souls everywhere. He's made 7, he can make more, right? And here, honestly, I relied on Voldemort's vanity and his weakness for melodrama. He wouldn't take the chair and the backpack and make them Horcruxes. He wanted, objects with mystique, a grandeur, important objects that will contain his soul after important deaths, not just any muggle that he happened to kill. And I counted on that to ensure he wouldn't have time, rather, to make additional Horcruxes. And, lastly, that after Snape has seen Nagini's newly protected status, he will have the opportunity to talk to Harry before things come to a head. And again, this is tricky because they won't be spending quality time together, but I do believe that Severus, again, is cunning enough to find a way to get to Harry. Again, I have a very, very high opinion of Severus. It's obvious. And this is a very precise sequence of events that has to happen in a fairly narrow timeline. But it does buy Harry that little bit of time between Voldemort finding out about the Horcruxes and Harry knowing about the scar. Now, as with assuming, the risky assumptions are all good. Number 2, number 3, number 4, they all come to pass. Problem is, assumption number 1, because Voldemort found out about the hunt when Nagini was not the only Horcrux left. There was still the diadem. So, the entire timeline narrows exponentially, because Harry now has to destroy the diadem and Nagini, all before Voldemort can make more Horcruxes, or kill him. And then it gets worse, because where is this undestroyed Horcrux? At Hogwarts, where Snape is, right there, and Snape will find out. Snape will see Voldemort right away. He will tell Harry right away. So essentially, the entire timeline that should have spanned weeks, if not months, narrows down to hours. I don't think that I ever planned for things to go down as they did in Deathly Hallows, where essentially half the war is decided in one night. It just happened that way, that Harry destroyed the diadem, Nagini, sacrificed himself, and killed Voldemort in 8 hours? Puts things in perspective. It was rather silly on my part to not realize that Voldemort would have a Horcrux at Hogwarts. But I think it's because I never understood quite what the school meant to him, as well as Harry understood it because he could sympathize. I knew that Hogwarts was very important to Voldemort because he chose the Founder's objects and everything, but I didn't think he would risk, putting a Horcrux under my nose just for his love of his school, and that was my flaw. And honestly, it is all sheer dumb luck that this all worked out. Best of plans. Okay, so we have been talking a lot about Horcruxes, right? How they hunt, how they kill, when, where, what. What's the title of the last book? Not Harry Potter and the Horcruxes, as I titled my fanfiction back in 2005. Do not read it, I was 13. It is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Now, those of you who were around a few years ago will remember that when Warner Brothers was about to make the 7th movie, I think this was before we knew there'd be 2, there was a question of whether they would cut out the Deathly Hallows subplot. Because, honestly, did they matter that much? Basically, mastering the Hallows, right? And that the Master of Death is the one who accepts that he has to die. Come on. That's BS. Because half the characters in the series accepted death and were willing to die. They didn't need the Hallows for that. The Potters accepted death. Hell, I did. I died. I accepted that fact. So why did I focus on making Harry being the Master of Death? In the King's Cross chapter, I tell Harry the truth, almost completely. But as ever with myself, some secrets are hard to let go of, and there's one enigmatic half-truth that I say in the conversation, where we are talking about the Hallows, and I tell him that I too sought a way to conquer death. There's a double meaning here. I sought a way to conquer death by trying to attain the Hallows in my youth to make myself immortal. However, I sought a way to conquer death again because I tried to make Harry the master of death. Because I did not fully believe, but held out hope that the conventional theory about master of death, that it makes you immortal, what if that was true? Then, if I made Harry master of death, that would give him a better fighting chance at surviving Voldemort's attack. And, you know, this didn't factor in, and because, as I said, master of death only means accepting death, but I realized this later and honestly wanted to give him any increase in fighting chances I could by making Harry unable to die as master of death. So I essentially, however, there's a bonus to trying to make Harry master of death, which is the fact that I sent him on a wild goose chase for months. I even fessed up to this in my conversation with Harry in King's Cross, when I told him that I counted on Miss Granger to slow him up in regards to the Hallows. Because, again, if Harry sought the Hallows for a few months, then that bought him a few more months of life. And I, like I said, cared more for his life than the lives that might be lost if everything failed. And I'm sure some of you are wondering, well, okay, Dumbledore, you planned for him to become Master of Death. You bequeathed him the snitch, you know, he had the cloak. What about the wand? I never planned for Harry wrestling with Draco to wrestle the masteriness of the Elder Wand away from Draco. That never factored into any of my plans. So now I present you with kind of the culmination of where I've been heading with all this. My plan to mastering the Hallows. So, step 1, leave Hermione the Tales of Beedle the Bard. That, you know, with the symbol and everything, that will send the trio on a chase for the Hallows rather than the Horcruxes, and will slow them down. Number 2, trust that it will take Voldemort a very long time to trace the Elder Wand back to Dumbledore. So Dumbledore just left the wand in his tomb, because if you remember, Voldemort had to start way back finding Grigorovich, who was the master of the Elder Wand. Then Grindelwald stole it, so Voldemort had to figure that out, which took months. Then he had to, you know, talk to Grindelwald, and only then figure out that Dumbledore was actually the master of the Elder Wand. So basically, I am slowing down both Harry and Voldemort here. Now, step 3, I bequeath the Resurrection Stone to Harry in the snitch, but I ensured that he cannot get it until the time is right and he's about to die. Why did I do this? Why did I make him sit there, you know, kissing the snitch? Because, yes, I was willing to gamble a lot on slowing things down for Harry. However, Harry has morbid fascination with death. Understandably so. He has lost everyone in his life. There's one quote at the end of Half-Blood Prince about Harry thinking that he should have given up the illusion he lost at the age of 1, that the embrace of a parent's arms would protect him, which just breaks my heart on so many levels. But essentially, if Harry could access the Resurrection Stone, I was afraid rather, that he would use it in the wrong way. He would just sit there chatting with his parents and Sirius, and essentially that he would waste away with the stone. And I wanted to slow Harry down, but I did want him eventually to kill Voldemort. So I could not risk that. I could not risk Harry accessing the stone until the very end. Now, step 4, the Elder Wand. I planned that when Snape would have his heart-to-heart with Harry about, how Harry has to die, I trusted to their hatred of each other the fact that Harry would disarm Snape. Snape would let Harry disarm him, because that would make Harry the master of the Elder Wand, which Snape was the master of. So while the wand is still hopefully safe in Dumbledore's tomb, and Snape would probably know to retrieve it if needed. Well, no, actually, I take that back. I was planning on telling Snape, probably through my portrait, to retrieve the wand when the time was right. But anyway, I left the wand in my tomb, but when Harry would disarm Snape, that would make him master of death, even though he wouldn't have the wand in his hand. And that would make him master of all three Hallows. I never planned for that whole final duel the way that worked out, for Voldemort to, blast Harry with the Elder Wand, and the Elder Wand to, flip through the air, and the curse to rebound. Again, I'm good. Not that good. That's okay. I'll wrap it up. So, the problem with this is that it essentially scraps the latter part of Plan B, where Snape got the Elder Wand to defeat Voldemort in case Harry died. I still hoped that Snape would be the one to defeat Voldemort if Harry died, and that would therefore exonerate him. But I took away the Elder Wand, which would have been Snape's best tool for the job. Which shows that I care about Harry an awful, awful lot. Snape, though, this essentially screwed him. And it was horrible on my part. Now, this whole plan, this elaborately constructed and wonderful plan, completely fails 5 minutes before I die, when Draco is the one to disarm me. And Draco is the master of the Elder Wand, not Snape, so Harry can't become the master of the Hallows, so the plan's done, that's it. But it's too late. Everything else is in place. I've left the book for Hermione, I've left the snitch for Harry, I've sent them on this chase for the Hallows, and now they can't get the wand. So, I'm in trouble. And my favorite quote, well, almost my favorite quote, from Joe Rowling is this one. But no, I really wanted, very consciously, for the history of the wizarding world to hinge on this moment where two teenage boys have a physical fight. They don't even do it by magic. That sort of puts all of Voldemort's and Dumbledore's grandiose plans in their place, doesn't it? You just can't plan that well, that something can go wrong, and it went wrong. It went wrong because Harry managed to pull this wand out of Draco's grip, and that is it. It's beautiful. This part in Deathly Hallows does not get its own sentence. Harry is leaping after Draco, and it's comma, he grabs the wands, comma, and the sentence continues as if nothing had happened. And this is why Joe Rowling. This is a handy-dandy diagram of the 4 plans that I guess you probably can't see from here, but this is all up on 2 essays on MuggleNet. I'm MuggleNet's columnist HP Boy 13. Some of you don't know that. So go to MuggleNet, go to the 3 broomsticks, and this will all be there. But essentially, to recap, Plan A is Harry hunting down Horcruxes. Then he either dies, and Snape fixes everything, or he lives and he beats Voldemort. Plan C is slowing things down when Harry knows that he needs to die. And Plan D is to send him on the chase for the Hallows and hope that Master of Death helps him out somehow. So, basically, almost all of these went horribly wrong. Which shows that as clever as I am, I'm not infallible. Basically, Plan D to make Harry the Master of the Hallows goes wrong when Draco disarms me before my death. Plan C, which is to slow everything down, Harry finding out about the scar, fails because the diadem is at Hogwarts, and just among other things, as we discussed, and that makes everything happen very, very fast. Plan B, doesn't happen because Harry survives, so we never have to worry about that. So the only one that works is the straightforward one in the beginning, Plan A, which is, destroy Horcruxes, sacrifice himself, beat Voldemort. So, I guess I needed to have bothered with Voldemort saying that. And the conclusion is that I am a Machiavellian and rather awful and willing to sacrifice people and essentially gamble hundreds of lives and the entire fate of the wizarding world to, make Harry a little bit better off. So this shows that my Machiavellian tendencies did have a limit, and that limit is Harry. And dropping Dumbledore for a minute, in theory, this is appalling. The Ravenclaw in me is like, you horrible man, how could you? But the Hufflepuff in me is like, because this is essentially why I was so furious with Dumbledore, because it seemed that he was heartless and there was nothing he wouldn't do for the cause. And this shows that he did love Harry. He loved Harry too much, actually, and that just warms my little heart. And I would love to hear your thoughts in a sec on whether you find this appalling or awe. But I am back to loving Dumbledore as much as I did when I first wept for him in 2005. And before I open it up to discussion, I want to leave you with this one quote from Order of the Phoenix, from myself. In other words, I acted exactly as Voldemort expects we fools who love to act. Thank you. Okay. I know there was a lot to take in, and it has been a long and exhausting con, but thoughts? Yes.
So I actually have written an essay and do a presentation about that very moment where the passing of the Elder Wand and what Dumbledore's plans for it are and what actually happens. And I thought it was so interesting because you sort of touched on that exact thing, and then you had sort of a different thought process.
Yeah.
So I'd like to compare the two and have your thoughts.
Sure.
So what my theory was that quote that you have from Dumbledore in Order of the Phoenix where he says, like, the flaw in the plan was that I love you too much, is also the chapter title for the last last chapter of the book. And if you notice in book 6, when Draco disarms him, like, Dumbledore, the reason that Draco was able to disarm Dumbledore is because Dumbledore spent the moment he could use defending himself to freeze Harry.
Yes.
And that is what allows Harry to then defeat Voldemort, because he is then Master of the Elder Wand, so when he Voldemort cast the Killing Curse for Bounds on him. And
thank you for that.
And it.
So there you have it. Dumbledore sacrificed all this to protect Harry. I mean,
and that's the flaw in the plan.
Yes.
Don't you think that the plan to make Harry the Master of the Hallows actually worked? But at a time he was the Master of the Hallows, but Dumbledore was so close-minded when it came to the whole avoiding that situation that he thought that being the Master of the Hallows automatically that you're excused from death.
Yes.
That's when, in actuality, it meant that it's more likely that you're going to die.
Yeah.
So, but I think that plan did succeed in a way.
It partially succeeded. That wasn't what made Harry not die, so that part didn't work. But yes, it did succeed in that Harry became Master of the Hallows, for all the good it did him. And it slowed them down, which also worked. But again, most of these things ended up working out, but that's through sheer dumb luck and coincidence, which is why it's so difficult to come up with all this, because I'm like, well, that happened, but that wasn't supposed to happen, but then it did happen, and yeah. I spent a long time on this. Anyone else? Sure.
Do you think if Harry had not been the master of the Elder Wand, that things would have turned out differently in that battle?
I mean, I suppose. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the final battle, because I feel like it was kind of a cop-out to have Harry not have to cast the Killing Curse. I think I would have liked to see Harry struggle with that and finally realize that it's unforgivable, but he has to do it. But I do think that Harry...
Shot in the head. Like,
like Indiana Jones.
right, like, it's all this magic, and he's like, oh, magic, the more powerful, the more important. I kind of just wanted to see someone, like, hit him with a rock.
Well, that's...
with that Voldemort ending.
But yeah, I do think that either Harry would have come around and cast the Killing Curse, while hopefully dodging Voldemort's killing curses. A whole other can of worms. But if not, someone else would have come forth and killed Voldemort because of the protection he gave. Yes.
So, what about some of Dumbledore's perhaps other questionable choices and decisions? And I'm thinking of a range of things starting from Book 1, where he shows up back at Hogwarts after Harry has already gone after the Philosopher's Stone, and says, where is he? And you get the idea that he kind of knew Harry was going to do this. It's a man who couldn't ward a wooden door against a first-year spell to open it, but is protecting the most valuable object in existence. And that entire confrontation kind of hinged on whether Quirrell was wearing gloves that day or not, because had he not worn the fingerprints, Harry would have been dead. To Hagrid, Rubeus Hagrid, being kept on staff, despite occasionally proving that he's not only a danger to himself, but to others as well. And I'm thinking of Agrimentula.
He started on Hagrid.
Yeah, I can't even
stand him. I've written essays about why he should be fired, not let near children.
Well, then yes, keeping on with Professor Binns and the hiring of Lockhart. I mean, this is a man who's made a number of very questionable...
Okay, but the Defense Against the Dark Arts thing, there's a limited talent pool after 50 years of 50 teachers.
That's good. But do you think that, I think him showing a soft touch, and maybe it's just the Slytherin in me, who's a little annoyed that his soft touch seems to be the thing that ruins all of these plans that could have solved this issue a lot sooner. Do you think that plays in at all?
Okay. There are several things I want to mention. First, you talk about his questionable choices with Hogwarts. Dumbledore is an appalling headmaster.
Yes, he is.
His running of Hogwarts is a hot mess. And I know we all hate Umbridge. I love to hate her. She's horrible. She did have a few good ideas. Again, that's another series of essays I've written. But yes, I think that Dumbledore was Hogwarts headmaster because he did enjoy working with students, but also because Hogwarts is such a huge strategic asset in the war against Voldemort. But yeah, no, I agree that his choices as headmaster are horrible. In regards to sending Harry in Sorcerer's Stone, I'm not sure if he meant to. I think he meant to let Harry try. I'm not sure he ever meant for Harry to actually get there and confront Quirrell. Because here's the thing. The stone was protected, and if Harry hadn't come along, Quirrell would have been looking at that thing forever and would have never gotten the stone. So,
well, it seems to me that that test was so foolproof at the end that the other tests, I hate putting it this way, but I almost feel that that first year was Dumbledore testing Harry to see if he was capable. We know Quirrell can get through those things. He was responsible for one of the protections. I don't believe for a moment Snape didn't go complain to Dumbledore about this whole situation. So it almost seems like the entirety of the first book is Dumbledore making sure he's got the chops to actually face the Dark Lord. And that seems kind of...
I think that Dumbledore underestimated the goodness in Harry's heart. And I don't think Dumbledore planned for Harry to get the stone from the mirror. Because he says how rare it is to find someone where, like, the thing he wants most in life is to, like, stop the bad guy. I don't think Dumbledore planned for that. So I think you're right. I think you're right. He did plan for Harry to get through the traps, to confront Quirrell and defeat Quirrell without actually having the stone in danger. Because he knew that Harry stood a reasonable chance against Quirrell, and it would have been good. It would have been a good start for Harry in this battle. It would have been a good, like, first round goes to Harry. So, yeah, I think that was a miscalculation on his part about Harry. Because, again, he'd only known the boy for, like, a year. Yes?
That's the biggest reason why I don't like Dumbledore is, I mean, the plan, you know, I used to think, oh, he's such a puppet master and everything. But I think it's the other things that he did, like when Snape comes back to him and he just treats Snape so... You know, he what does he say? You know,
you disgust me.
You disgust me. I mean, I almost put it from my head because I just couldn't. But it's just if he wants Snape to be on his side, I mean, why is he, you know, he's going to end up using this man. He's going to end up respecting and trusting this man above all others. But he's so awful to him. And then, like you said, he puts this huge bullseye on his back, and it's like, well, I'm going to die, and I think you will too.
Well, he didn't think Snape would die. You think that Voldemort would try very hard to kill Snape, but I think he expected Snape to survive. Here's the thing. The way he treats Snape, keep in mind, Snape is a Death Eater. He is an unreformed Death Eater whom Dumbledore has been fighting against for several years now. He comes to Dumbledore and is like, okay, so here's the thing. Voldemort wants to kill this family with the baby. I'm in love with the woman, so can you save her? The husband and the baby, they can die, I give no shit. But please save this woman.
Is it understandable why he could care less about the man when the man... With the baby?
With the baby.
Oh, I know. But I mean, and actually, I mean, it goes back further than that, like the whole 6th year. That all that kind of stuff where he, you know, he just... Oh, you lived because the guy that you hated saved you, and now you have a life.
Well, that was his propaganda for Harry, in a way. I don't think he actually thought that he liked Snape, you know, had this huge life debt to James. I think that's what he told Harry because he's an 11-year-old. He was like, why does the professor hate me? It's like, oh, because your father was so wonderful and saved him. That's the only reason. And that was a smoke screen to, you know, not get into the whole Lily thing.
No, but I mean, no, I'm taking Harry out of the equation completely. I'm going back to the Marauders and Snape's, their time, and why there was never any punishment, any real punishment for attempting to kill a fellow student. That's.
It's not how things are done at Hogwarts. I mean, the twins nearly kill Montague. Oh wait, no, they left the school. Sorry. You know, the students are horrible to each other. Like, again, he's a horrible headmaster because there's no safety, there's no security. Like, everyone just runs amok there. Let's go back to the Sorcerer's Stone. I love this. When Norbert, right? When they have to smuggle Norbert to Charlie's friends. So, let's get this straight. 2 11-year-olds with a dragon go up to the highest tower in the middle of the night to meet a bunch of adult wizards that they have never met before. Am I the only one who sees something wrong with this? So, that's just Hogwarts for you. Anyone else? Yes?
Well, I mean, you also have in, like, 6th year when Harry and Draco face off in the bathroom, and Harry almost kills Draco a sectum sempra, and he gets off with pretty much nothing. So I think that, like...
totally wrong.
Yeah, so like I think that just punishment, like it doesn't, they don't have, it's just attention.
Tarantulas in the forest, like
he gave him the invisibility cloak. The single biggest thing that enables Harry to put himself in danger came from Dumbledore.
At age 11, I mean, dear God. Well, that Joe needed him to have the cloak. Sure.
But the thing is that for the story itself to work, like this is Joanne are only constructing this story, right, to be a certain kind of story. For the story to work, you've got to have 11-year-olds saving the day.
Yeah.
Right. Right? So that's a requirement of her story. I know she needs to make it as believable as possible. But that is, you know, she's got 11-year-olds reading it. Harry has to save the day. I always felt bad for Ginny in book 2, because while Harry, when he was in first year, got to save the day, Ginny gets to, like, lie on a stone floor.
And then, in Deathly Hallows, it's like, no, Ginny, you stay here. You don't get to fight. You're underage. Harry was 5 years younger than her when he faced Quirrell.
Exactly.
And again, with the second December thing, there's such huge favoritism for Harry. I mean, no wonder the Slytherins hate him, let's be real. So there's that in play. Yes.
Another terrible thing Dumbledore did. Isn't there like a little check for textbooks? Like, how did he allow this textbook that this guy who was a follower of Tom Riddle or Voldemort at the time he was doodling in it or whatever, or writing down these dangerous spells, probably other dangerous things in there. How is there not like a little check of textbooks to make sure that, I don't know, there's nothing that could like kill students in them?
Entire library on dark magic.
Right. I'm sure he could, which is why I don't think that was an accident.
You survived Hogwarts.
No, but like he just left it in the potions classroom, right, on a shelf.
No, I think it
I
was
don't
put
think
there
Dumbledore
for
ever
Harry
knew
to
about
get.
that. I think it was like, here, I'm donating my textbook, I'm done with Hogwarts. Okay, use textbook pile. I don't think they examined the textbooks. Probably should have, but there you are. Anyone else have horrible things about Dumbledore? Since that seems to be what this is.
When do you think it'd be updated in like 20 years?
Oh, the textbook.
Yeah. They don't update anything.
Hogwarts history hasn't been.
I want to go to school there.
So, one thing I'm kind of saying a problem with is, yeah, Harry's a great guy, but Dumbledore is betting too much on the fact that he is willing to sacrifice himself for this. I mean, what if Harry had been like, you know what? I've done all I can. Y'all are on your own.
When are you talking about? In like the later books, 6 or 7, or like when he first met Harry?
Later books.
Again, I think he knew Harry well enough that Harry would sacrifice himself.
Yeah, Harry's
Sacrifice himself the entire series.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the entire book is like, let me die for you. I need to do this alone.
The Ministry series.
The whole time he's sacrificing.
Yeah.
Harry's very predictable. I don't think that was a
He's such a
gamble.
Gryffindor.
Yeah.
Well, like,
Even Voldemort was like, he didn't.
Value.
Oh, yeah.
Dumbledore totally set him up by putting with the Dursleys.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And he had such a need to have people to validate himself with people, and then sacrificing himself. Because after having the abuse of the Dursleys, he just wanted people to accept him. And he would do anything for that. His mom sacrificed her life for people to accept him.
Like, there's like things that
It's not a self-sacrificing word.
Right, traumatized children like often do not turn out